Running a sub 4 hour marathon is a common goal shared by many runners, some looking to prepare for their first after a stint of consistent training, while others looking to set a new PB in the distance. Today, I'm going to show you how you can plan your very own sub 4 hour marathon training plan with the video sections up on the screen now. Let's get into it. Now, before we begin creating the training plan, you're probably wondering, Jack, how can I trust you, a random stranger on YouTube, with creating a training plan that'll help me go sub 4 hours? Firstly, I was in your position not too long ago, hoping to go sub 4 hours in my first ever marathon and not quite succeeding in that. Secondly, I have also completed a level 1 running coach accreditation through Athletics Australia, so I do know a thing or two now about planning a proper training plan, so I'm hoping you can trust me with this one. Before we put some pen to paper, I know a lot of runners aiming to go for sub 4 hours wonder what exactly the requirements are to cross that finishing line in a sub 4 hour time. Now, before I share those exact paces with you, I believe there are 3 additional requirements that will help get you there. The first is having an established running base. Now, an established running base isn't suddenly running 20 kilometers and calling yourself ready to train for a marathon. It's having that extended mileage over a consistent period of time. For me, I'd say that's around the 6-month mark, but every runner is different. Some may progress a lot quicker than others may take a lot longer. Now, this isn't an exact time frame though, but more often than not, I'm seeing runners signing themselves up for their first ever marathon, thinking they can suddenly run sub 4 hours without really having an established running base or even fitness base previously. By running consistently and establishing your running base, you put yourself in a much stronger position come day 1 of marathon training. Secondly, you need to be committed to your marathon training. It's usually an extended period of 12 to even 20 weeks sometimes, and it's not for the faint-hearted here. You need to respect the marathon distance because it can be unforgiving at times. While missing a few sessions here and there over the course of your entire training isn't going to drastically impact you, you're going to put yourself in a lot worse of a position if you're missing multiple sessions per week. Thirdly is having an athlete's mindset when going into marathon training. So that's controlling what you can control: your nutrition, your sleep, and your recovery to get you through to the next session. We don't see any elite runners suddenly going out partying the night before a long run. Treat your marathon training like an athlete would. Now, most importantly, the pace to get you to a sub 4 hour marathon. That's 5 minutes 41 seconds per kilometer or 9 minutes and 9 seconds per mile. Okay, let's get into how we can create our very own sub 4 hour marathon training plan. When it comes to marathon training duration, how many times I need to run a week, do I need to strength train? Personally, this can vary from runner to runner. However, in my personal experience, I found 16 weeks to be a really good time frame to, one, allow you to build up the marathon fitness that you need to run sub 4 hours, and secondly, to account for any setbacks or niggles that you may have during training. And this is probably going to be inevitable no matter how well you're prepared for your marathon. So there's a secret beauty in 16 weeks being able to adjust if needed. For this training plan, I'll be setting it at 5 runs per week, as well as getting in 2 strength training sessions if possible. Reasons that setting it for 5 days a week is, 1, to allow your legs to build the endurance over the 16 weeks, and second, to feel what it's like to run on fatigued and tired legs during your training. It's not quite easy having to get up on a Monday morning for an absorption run after a massive 28k long run the day prior, but you need both that physical and mental resilience when it comes to your marathon. Looking down at the piece of paper now, it's quite a blank and daunting experience to work out how exactly are we going to plan running a marathon. So I always like to start with race day, usually on the Sunday, unless you're running Boston, which is usually on a Monday. Next, I like to start at peak week. So working out what is your longest run for the marathon training going to be for this marathon plan, and to really build that confidence. If you're trying to run a sub 4, I believe if we go to week 13, which will be peak week, 32 Ks is an ideal distance. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly 32 Ks, but reasons that I set it at 32 is, more often than not, I find people that are aiming to run sub 4 hours have a running base developed that allows them to run consistently for long periods of time. So the 32k mark is almost just that confidence boost going into your race, knowing that when you cross that 30k mark, that's really when the marathon starts. So you're probably wondering, okay, Jack, we've got the 32k long run marked as peak week, but what does the rest of the week look like? And also, what does the rest of training look like? Firstly, starting the Monday with a 7k absorption run. The purpose of having the 7k run on the Monday is to absorb all the mileage from the previous day's long run. The absorption run really serves as a purpose to, one, keep the legs moving, and to two, promote blood circulation and recovery in the lead up to the following week's training. Wanting to run a sub 4 hour distance does mean you need to be looking at some quality into your training. So I've pinpointed Tuesdays and Thursdays as days for quality sessions. Quality sessions are used in a variety of ways, mainly to get you prepared at running at marathon pace for 42.195 kilometers. When it comes to marathon training, I usually am pretty routine in sticking to the same sessions each week. However, you can choose to mix up your quality sessions over the course of your marathon training if you're looking at a bit of variety and to not have things become very boring. The two quality sessions that I would put on a rotating basis on the Tuesday would be 6 by 800 meter repeats and 4 by mile repeats. For the 6 by 800 meter repeats, you're looking at doing that at your 5k pace and is primarily used to build that lactate threshold, being able to sustain a faster pace for a longer period. For the 4 by mile repeats, this is usually done at your half marathon pace and is used to essentially build that endurance and that VO2. So this is what it could look like on the Tuesday. So you get the gist here, rotating those two sessions all the way up until you hit week 1. As for the taper week in the final 3 weeks of the training plan, you can include quality sessions. However, looking at dropping either the amount of reps you're doing or the intensity that you're completing them at. So for this one here, it could be dropping the 4 by mile repeats to the 3 by mile repeats as we get into the taper week. So still maintaining that intensity for week 14, but dropping the amount of mileage that we do for that week. And then week 15, even less quality. So having 3 by 800 meter repeats. For race week, we really don't have anything to gain from the quality session. So even doing a easy 3K with a few 100-meter strides afterwards. All right, so I put all the quality sessions up there to complete that first one. When it comes to the Thursday quality sessions, using this as a second quality session to really work on your race pace. So here, using Thursday as an opportunity to do a tempo run. So looking at starting at around 20 minutes of tempo running in week 1, getting up to around that 40-minute mark of tempo running in week 13. I don't know what happened here with the Monday section. I kind of veered off, but as we can see, the marathon plan is kind of taking shape now. Okay, I'll input the long run progression and then do an explanation afterwards. Okay, had to do a bit of math to make sure I had 16 different long runs here, besides race day, obviously. Now, with my reasonings behind this long run progression is essentially it's a very gradual, easy increase in your mileage for your long runs that allows your body to adapt to the training load you're putting it under. So as you can see, we go through weeks 1 to 4, 16k, 20k, 25k, 16k. That fourth week is a deload week to let your body rest and to accumulate and adapt to all the training load you've put it under in the first month. 20Ks, 25Ks, 20Ks, 30Ks. You may be wondering, Jack, shouldn't the 20 be near the 30? Finding and factoring in at the week 7 mark, potentially having some niggles or even setbacks occur, using that as an opportunity to have your body prepared for the first real big long run effort coming in at week 8. Dropping back to 20Ks before building up to 25 and then 30Ks in week 11 before going into 16Ks again before another big jump at 32Ks as well. As a 3-hour 30 marathon runner now, personally, as I was training for sub 4 hours, all of my long runs were completed at an easy pace, and May have picked it up in the final 3Ks if I was feeling like it, but for this plan, I haven't put any race pace efforts for the long runs. You'd really want to be using this to build up your aerobic base, but also the endurance in your legs to run the entire distance. I feel like the secret to running a sub 4 hour marathon is being able to run the entire distance as one of the major key factors, knowing you're ready to do so. So as I mentioned, strength is probably a good way to keep your body in tip-top shape and ensuring that you prevent as many injuries or onsets or potential niggles as possible. For that, I've dedicated that to Fridays. Editing Jack here, realizing I forgot to put in the second strength training session day. Now, it's completely up to you on whether or not you decide to do 2 strength training sessions per week, but I would recommend putting the second session, or technically the first here, on the Tuesdays. So keeping your hard days hard and then your easy days of running easy. And then as we get to taper period, I would even suggest having weeks 14 and 15 also including a bit of strength in it. However, if you're finding that you're just completely tired and your legs need the rest, just take them out there and use it as an extra day of rest. I also just realized I forgot to put the taper week tempo session. So doing 20 minutes in week 14 and then using a 7K run just to keep the mileage up in week 15 before I rest in race week. I've also bounced over the place and forgot to even put what peak week looks like before getting into mapping out what this training plan was. So the Wednesday sessions will be a 14K midweek long run, again to use that to build up your aerobic base, endurance, and then the strength in your legs. And then for the taper period, dropping it from 12Ks in week 14 to 10 to a rest day in race week. For Saturday, I've actually left that as a complete rest day. Now, if you want to or are feeling strong enough in your running base, can include an additional run here of say 5Ks at a park run, for instance, or even some cross training. But I personally found that your body, especially if you're looking at starting at with a sub 4 hour marathon, your body needs that rest to accommodate all of the training load that you're putting it under. And as we see on the paper now, you're out there for a long time each weekend. Sometimes it's good to just lay up and completely let your body rest before doing anything else. I'll take you down to race week now here. So I've got 5Ks, 3Ks with strides, rest, rest, shake out, and then rest. Now, this is just a guide when it comes to race week, and this is what I followed when running 3 hours and 43 in Ballarat this year. I found that I really don't need to be running too much, and I built all that fitness up in these 16 weeks too. So just being sure to get out there and keep the legs turning is really all that I use race week for. Really enjoy the Friday shakeout runs, and this is the opportunity to go for a run and ensure your body is feeling 100% come race day. Some people choose to do that on the Saturday, but again, entirely up to you, and this is just a guide on what it can look like. And so there we have it. This is the completed 16-week marathon training plan and what it can look like. So I'm sure you're wondering, what are some signs to know that I'm actually ready to run the elusive sub 4 hour marathon? Now, we never know if we're 100% ready to run whatever time we're striving for. It's a matter of getting out there and seeing if it's possible. But one big key that I found is being able to complete more than 80% of your marathon training. As I mentioned earlier in the video, if you're starting to miss multiple sessions per week and not able to get out for your long runs, it's really putting yourself at a detriment and not being able to even run the marathon distance, because you run yourself the risk of a whole world of problems, usually injury being the biggest one. Another factor to consider is being able to hold your marathon pace at the shorter distances. So 5K, 10Ks, up to your half marathon. If you're struggling to hold the marathon pace at half marathon even, it's really going to be difficult trying to do it for the full 42.195 kilometers. Lastly is crafting your marathon race nutrition. This needs to be completed during your training. That includes what you're having for breakfast before your long runs, as well as the fuel you're taking during them. As every runner under the sun says, nothing new on race day. So there we have it, friends. A walkthrough on creating a sub 4 hour marathon training plan. I hope you found the video useful, as well as the insights into crafting what a training plan can look like. I do have to credit Hal Higdon for being a big inspiration to all of the marathon training plans that I've created for myself and managing to run 3 hours and 30 minutes this year. If someone like me who's had zero long distance running experience before to managing to hit my first sub 4 hour marathon after a year of running, I have every bit of belief that you can do it too. If you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll like my one here on the keys to running a sub 4 hour marathon. I'm Jack, and I'll see you next time. Catch up.